Yo, what's up, everybody? Back again, Sparklight. It's a special episode today, man. It's a special episode because the regular season is officially over. It's been a long road. I think this was episode 16 or something like that. Pretty much, I think I've done it every week besides 1 week. So I want to thank all of you guys for the support you've shown me all season. Shout out all y'all for being here. Shout out y'all for taking this journey with me. First and foremost, I'll get to the playoffs and I'll get to, all of that and stuff like that. But I just want to break down kind of like my experience with, the WNBA and just what it was like to cover the team this season. Number one, thoroughly enjoyed it. I think that my love for basketball as a sport has grown. Like I'll see people all the time like have reasons as to why they don't watch the WNBA. Like, oh, they don't dunk, they don't do this, they don't do that. And for me, it all comes down to you just don't like basketball the way that you think you like basketball. If you love basketball, then you'll genuinely enjoy the WNBA. Like, it's not a second grade league. It's very good basketball. Like, honestly, if I had a son and I was trying to teach him how to play basketball, I would actually make him watch the women's game before I would make him watch the men's game. Reason being is, so many things are just heightened in the women's game because they don't have the same level of athleticism that the men's game does, So I actually think that the women might have higher basketball IQs than a lot of the men for the most part because they need it. If you have a 45-inch vertical and, you can run fast as whatever and jump out the gym, you don't really need to know some of the small little nuances. You don't need to know about, creating separation with your feet. Maybe your footwork doesn't need to be as good. Maybe you don't need to know about, certain angles on the court and how to get to the rim from this angle better, or, certain things like that, that I think is so prevalent in, the women's game. For one, like isolation play, like it happens, but it's not as prevalent as it is in like the men's game. Like you don't have too many, not granted, it's coming. Like everything, some of the things we're talking about is coming, even athleticism, like Diamond DeShields. Like I'm pretty sure she could be in the Olympics. She is a world-class athlete. Raquana Williams, she's a world-class athlete. Chelsea Gray, one of the best isolation players that we have in the WNBA. So some of these things are coming, but it's not as prevalent as it is in the men's game. So therefore, things like teamwork, things like ball movement, things like setting a good screen, things like knowing how to come off a screen, things like knowing how to run the pick and roll, things like just being in good position defensively, things like playing defense without fouling. Certain things like that are just heightened. So actually, if I had a son and I was trying to teach him about, how to watch basketball and, teach him really like the game of basketball and, if like I was trying to build an athlete and build like the perfect basketball player, I would actually make him watch the WNBA before I made him watch the NBA, honestly, because some of these things are just heightened. And that's just what I've learned this season, man. Like I've had a great experience. All of the women are great, like great spirits, great personalities. And it's dope to see the level of camaraderie that they all have. Like, granted, I don't know about every team. I haven't been in every team's locker room, so I don't know. I'm just speaking about the Sparks. The camaraderie that I see from this team is just amazing. Like, even after the worst losses, I can never remember a time in which I walk in the locker room and like I feel like it's broken, Like I've seen them lose by 40 and I've seen them win by 40. And no matter what, when I walk in the locker room, I feel like I saw the same. I'm like seeing the same team. I never feel like it's fractured. Obviously, they're all athletes. Everybody has an ego. Everybody is there for a reason. They can all play basketball. So I'm sure that as Raquana Williams even referenced.
It's fun to watch them, and I'm sure, like, for them it's kind of hard because they make feel a certain way, like, about, like, minutes or whatever, but I think everybody's always ready, like, no matter what, and it's enjoyable, especially when Marina made the three, and I told her I was sliding on the floor, but she didn't believe me, because I never get to do that, like, so it was fun. Yeah.
last game when, the bench closed out the game against Minnesota, which was the last game of the season. Everybody, maybe they might feel a way about not getting the same minutes that they want to get, maybe they aren't getting as many shots as they want to get. Maybe they aren't getting as many plays ran for them as they want to get. But when I walk in the locker room, I never feel like they let individual egos and individual accolades and individual accomplishments get in the way of the main goal and fracture the team. Again, like whether they lost by 40 or whether they won by 40, I still feel like every time I went into the locker room, I saw the same team. I think you got to commend Derek for that, like Fish. I think Fish should get a lot of credit for that. But also, I think these women should get the bulk of the credit for that. Even as like Fish says, like, that the kind of like the gratifying part about being a coach is that you aren't the one that has to do it. They have to go do it. You can call up the greatest scheme in the world, but if they don't execute, it really don't matter, So, you can, give out, he can like tell you what Tex Winter said 9 million times. He can tell you what Phil Jackson said 9 million times. But at some point in time, the women that's in the locker room have to take it upon themselves to say, you know what, team first. And I think that's what they done all year, and I think that's why, with, coming to the end of the season, with all the injuries they've had, the struggles they had early on, I think that's why they sit where they sit. Right now they're third in the conference, so they get the first round bye. So they won't play in the first round. They still will play a single elimination game against the lowest seed. So, I think Wednesday you have Minnesota and Seattle, and you have Phoenix and Chicago. So, for instance, if Phoenix beats Chicago, then the Sparks would play Phoenix in a single game elimination in LA. If Minnesota beats Seattle, then they will play Minnesota in a single game elimination in LA. Basically, they can play anybody besides the Sky. The Sky are the highest, besides the Sky. The Sky are the highest seed, so regardless, Vegas will be playing them. But they can play anybody else besides the Sky. But I think that's why they sit in the position that they sit in. Like there was, if this team had egos and, if this team was fractured, or if they, weren't as together as they are, there's many times during the season in which this thing could have went south. When you sitting at 8-8, especially with all the expectations that were hampered up on this team. For one, you bring in Fish. Fish has had his struggles, criticized for the way the New York thing handled out. Went, even though I don't think that was necessarily his fault. I think that even he's alluded to it, like he kind of left with a sour taste in his mouth dealing with the politics. And I don't even think what he had in New York was the best situation to be able to succeed in. You talking about a team in transition. I think at the same point in time, like Noah couldn't even play because of his contract. Phil's trying to kick Melo out. You bring in Porzingis, so Porzingis is really the guy you want to hang the reins over to, but Melo's still here. Phil trying to kick Melo out. You really don't have a real direction, and you bring in a coach and want him to be successful under those circumstances, and that's kind of unrealistic, and that's kind of also unfair. But regardless, somebody has to be the scapegoat. And I think in many situations, not in many situations, but in many people's mind, it was Fish. I think people blame Fish for a lot of stuff that I don't necessarily know if it was Fish's fault for. And granted, maybe he didn't do the best job. Again, it's his first head coaching job. Obviously, like nobody, I don't think anybody wins MVP in their rookie year. Most coaches don't win Coach of the Year in their rookie year. You have a very select few that come in immediately for their first coaching job ever and have immediate success. You saw Steve Kerr do it. But outside of that, I don't remember too many people who came in their first coaching job ever, like never coached before, and had immediate success. Usually it doesn't work like that. So I think that Fish analyzed his mistakes, analyzed what went wrong, came to the W, rectified some of those mistakes, and I also think that he was just put in a much better situation to succeed. Having Candace Parker, having NECA, having Chelsea, having people who were established all-stars, MVPs, to me that always makes the transition easier because, again, you don't have to coach as much. Like some things they just know. I think Nneka as an MVP knows how to win basketball games. I think Candace Parker, one of the best basketball players to ever play, knows how to win basketball games. I think Chelsea Gray, who was a two-time All-Star before he even came, knows how to win basketball games and knows how to play the game of basketball. You got Shanae Agumake off the bench. She's been an All-Star before. I think she knows how to play basketball. Elena Beard, 16, 17-year veteran, two-time Defensive Player of the Year, been an All-Star. I think she knows how to play basketball. So I think that the cast of members that he had made it much easier, made the transition easy, and I also think that he made the transition easy on them. I don't think I think he focused more on the principles of basketball rather than like the X's and O's. He even alluded to that. He even alluded to that. After Sunday's game against Minnesota, that like what wins you championships isn't that cool out of timeout play you call. Like, that's not the stuff that wins you championships. It's setting good screens. It's making the right pass. It's making the best pass. It's having good position on defense. It's the small things win you championships, and I think that that's what he focused on more. Getting them to communicate defensively, getting them to trust each other offensively. Setting good screens, making the right play. I think that he focused on those things, and that's also what made the transition easier instead of coming in trying to, implement the most innovative triangle offense or the most innovative offense or the most innovative defensive scheme. We're gonna keep it simple, and we're gonna go back to the basic principles of basketball. If we can master the basic principles of basketball, everything else we'll figure out. If we know how to just make the right read, certain things we'll get just because we played better basketball than you. Some games we'll win because we played better basketball than you, because we made the right pass more than you did. So we cut our turnovers down and you had 20. Wasn't no scheme for that. We just made the right pass. We had good position on defense. We played defense without fouling. So in turn, you didn't shoot 20 free throws. You shot 6. We didn't bail you out because we wanted to get overzealous. We just put our hands up and played good defense. Those are the things that win you championships, and I think that those are the things that he focused on more than focusing on, again, some crazy offensive scheme. Even the work that he's done with Chelsea Gray, like I was watching her in the last game against Minnesota that they won, and just seeing how she navigated the pick and roll is just so different from how she was navigating the pick and roll earlier in the season. Now, granted, she's always been, extremely talented. Even from day one when I looked and watched her, you could tell she was probably one of the best point guards in the league. But I still feel like Fish being a point guard and being able to coach her helps a lot, especially in the pick and roll. Like, the way she navigates the pick and roll is a thing of beauty. I think that she reminds me, honestly, a lot of in certain ways, when she navigates the pick and roll, like an Andre Miller. Like Andre Miller, if you guys don't know who Andre Miller is, please go do some research. Now, granted, she knows how to get in transition and throw some Magic Johnson in there, but the way she navigates the pick and roll, to me, is like an Andre Miller. Like, she's very, very patient. Which is one thing I have to compliment her on, that she's improved upon throughout the season. It's just her patience in the pick and roll. Like, I know there was a certain point in time which I felt like she was too patient and she would wait so long and kind of get caught in no man's land. Now I feel like she's navigating. Like, she'll wait to the very last second, but she'll make the decision that she wants to make before it gets to be too late. I think that she's dictating how the defense will react, and is not at all letting the defense dictate how she reacts on those screens. I think that she's pulling all the strings, personally. And I think you got to give a lot of Fish a lot of credit with that. And also the fact of how much trust he shows in her now. Like he'll leave her out there for 40 minutes. He'll play her for 40 minutes. Granted, now sometimes I think he shouldn't play her 40 minutes because I worry about, that's just a lot of stress to put on one's body. But same time, usually when she does play 40 minutes, I know TPJ got a chance to ask her post-game, how she deals with that and, how she gets rest mid-game. She said that, she'll use timeouts for rest. She'll use free throws for rest, certain things like that. But also, I know earlier in the season I said that I think the Sparks need to use Candace Parker like Jokic, and they do a lot of times. So even her playing 40 minutes, it's not like she's playing the James Harden type 40 minutes. She's not the one dribbling the ball up court every single possession. Everything in offense isn't setting up from her. Like you have Candace there to take some of the load off. She can bring the ball up and give it to you on a handoff, which is much less stress than you dribbling the ball up, being pressed 94 feet, and you got to get into your offense. So she gets to get rest throughout this 40 minutes where it's not like, again, she's not playing like a James Harden type 40 minutes where every single thing comes from her. And she doesn't get to get any rest off ball. A lot of what she does is off ball. But then when she gets the ball in her hands, she's great with making decisions. And she probably is one of the best transition players in the league. I mean, she can pull up. You've seen her passing ability. She can finish at the rim. She pretty much has it all. So, you got to commend her, commend Fish, commend Nneka. Nneka, listen, Deladon is going to run away with MVP. It's not close, all right? It's not at all close. But Nneka should get some votes. She should get at least 5 first-place votes. Nneka should get the other 90, not Nneka. Deladon should get the other 95. Deladon is the first player in WNBA history to have a 50, 40, 90 season. Washington, I think, is also the favorites. I think if Washington did not win a ring, it would be a disappointment for Washington. I think that they probably have one of the best teams in WNBA history. Now, granted, if you get into a series, you can muck things up, you can slow things down. A lot of what they do, I think, is based off rhythm. So if you could throw off their rhythm a little bit, hey, you give yourselves a shot. But at least just on paper, when you look at what they did, I think they went 26-8. Deladon having, you could argue one of you could probably literally argue she's having probably the best season in WNBA history. If you wanted to make that argument, you probably have grounds for that argument. So again, Nneka's gonna win MVP. Like it's not close. Nneka's not Nneka, excuse me. Deladon's gonna win MVP. It's not close. She gonna run away with it. But Nneka should get some votes. I think you got to commend what she's done all season. Again, pretty much she's missed 2 games. There was a Space Jam game, and then she load managed. I think it was the game after it was the Dream game, the Atlanta Dream game that came down to the wire. She load managed that night, and it was a game early in the season in which I think she shot Space Jam. Load managed that game, but for the most part, they played 34 games. She pretty much been out there all 34. So you got to commend that. Pretty much every night, she was somebody that you could look to, and she was a comforting presence and a comforting force for this team. And I think she should win Defensive Player of the Year. For the most part, besides the game in which they played Washington, you really don't see anybody ever have a good night on Nneka. When you play Nneka Agumake, I think the opposing big knows that they got their work cut out for them. Again, for the most part, nobody has a great night against Nneka. I think TRP's defense is flashier because she's the one pressing you full court. She's the one that's being the pest. But I think that Nneka Agumake has been the anchor for this defense all season. And I think that she should win Defensive Player of the Year. If not win Defensive Player of the Year, she should be first team all defense hands down. Now, granted, I don't know if she'll get it because, I think that certain people have better stat lines than she does defensively. Like they probably average more rebounds, like Jonquel Jones. I think Natasha Howard is the favorite to win Defensive Player of the Year. I'm sure she has more rebounds, probably averages more blocks per game. So it looks sexier. But Nneka plays the type of defense where you don't score. You know, also she might not get many blocks because she's just in great position. You know, like I think blocks and steals sometimes, when you talk about defense, can be a little bit overrated. You know, blocks and steals don't always mean you're a great defender. I mean, you can go for steals and jump the passing lane too much and give up buckets. You know, averaging 2 blocks don't necessarily mean you a great, you know, rim protector. It just means you jump at everything. So you might be a person that we can get off your feet. So sometimes it's better just put your hands up and do this than even block the shot. You know, just force somebody into a tough shot, then try to block the shot, end up picking up with a foul, things like that. But I think Nneka has been a stabilizing force for this team all year. You know, even when things were bad, when things were great, the one person you could look to is Nneka Ogwumike. She'd be right there, dump me the ball, I'll get you a bucket, I'll bail you out in a tight situation. So shout out Nneka and the job she's done all year. And Candace Parker, man. You know, earlier in the season, actually that was a poll that came out that I guess WNBA players voted Candace Parker for, I think, the most overrated player in the league, which I think is completely unfair. I think that since she's gotten healthy, pretty much since the All-Star break, she's been lights out. I think arguably since the All-Star break, she's been the best player on this team and the catalyst every night. She's been scoring more recently. Her passing has been incredible. And she's looking like the Candace Parker that we all know and love. And you know she's won, I think, Player of the Week twice since the All-Star break. I think she just won it this week. I know her and Deladon won it a previous time. I think it was maybe right after the All-Star break when she won it. She's been great. And I think since the All-Star break, she's been a big reason for this, what I think is 14-game home winning streak. She's a big reason as to why they sit in third right now. I think that she's like kind of, again, I said she needs to be like the Jokic for this team, and I think she is like the Jokic for this team. Like, she does so much. She could score 8 points, but could have 8 rebounds and 8 assists. She's pretty much, honestly, a triple-double threat every night. Now, she might not get one every night, but she's a person who can realistically get close to a triple-double every night. Now, granted, her stats on the season say 11, 6, and 3, and 1, and basically 1, but she's much better than that. I think a lot of that is just earlier on in the season when, you know, she was getting back, finding the rhythm, being in and out of the lineup. But again, since she's been back on the court and a consistent participant every night, she's been great. Sydney Weiss, I mean, seeing her growth throughout the season has been incredible. She pretty much has been the leader in plus minus, I think, the past 4 games. I think I had an episode, like the first couple episodes, in which I said I think that her effect will be shown in the plus minus most nights and not on the stat sheet, because she does so much that doesn't show up on the stat sheet. But looking forward towards the playoffs. Again, I still have the fear, you know, of them getting shot out the gym. I think that Chicago is a matchup you want to avoid. Obviously, Washington is Washington. But I think my 2 worst fears for the Sparks is Chicago and Washington. But the thing about Chicago is, if you get into a series with Chicago, which is what you would probably end up getting into, if Chicago were to advance past the single-game elimination, they would end up playing Vegas, and again, another single-game elimination, and then you would enter into a series with Chicago. And again, entering into a series is a little bit different because, I mean, you know, I don't know if you're going to stay hot and if you're going to hit, 18 threes every night in a series. But again, in one game, you can come in, get hot, hit about 18 threes. Somebody can go for 30 points. Vandersloot go for 30 points. Quickly go for 30 points. Diamond, one of the most athletic players in the league, she could easily go for 20-something points. Things like that can happen. But in a series, I would like the Sparks' chances against the Sky. I think they have a better all-around team, and I think that some of the things that the Sky do could very well just not work one night. And I think that the Sparks have shown that they can win games in a couple more ways than what the Sky have shown. I think that if the Sky's offense isn't working, I don't know if they're going to pull the game out. I think that the Sparks can get by for a game because of their defense if their offense isn't working. Like, they have stretches in which, they may go Like, they may have a quarter in which they score 8 points that entire quarter, but they might hold you to 6. So they kind of like stabilize the fact that they weren't scoring by their defense. I don't know if Chicago can do that. So in a series, I would like the Sparks' chances. Honestly, in a series, I think the Sparks can beat anybody besides Washington. Washington is the only team where it's like that would be a situation in which I would pick Washington. Because, again, Washington just looks like world beaters. Like, they look like, again, one of the best teams in WNBA history. But anybody else, I love the chances against them. Now, the team that also would scare me in a single game elimination would be the Mercury. I think the Mercury are better than their record. Again, Diana Taurasi is still Diana Taurasi. Now, I know she hasn't looked great since she's come back off injury. She's looked a little rusty. She's looked her age a little bit. But that's still Diana Taurasi. That's still one of the greatest women's basketball players to ever play the game. She come in here, hit 5 threes, go for 24 points. You also got Bonner. You also have Brittany Griner. That team is a little bit better than the AFC. Like I think that team is their record doesn't really do them justice. I think they've had some injuries. Again, Diana's been out, and they've kind of slipped up here and there. But I think for them, they just want to get in the playoffs. So that's a team that would scare me because of just the star power that they have. I mean, you're talking about what I think they had 2 All-Stars. Make sure of that. I know Griner was an All-Star. And look it up for you. Give me 1 second. Griner was an All-Star and DeWanna Bonner was an All-Star. All right, so you got 2 All-Stars, and then you add that back in with Diana Taurasi. So you're really talking about 3 All-Stars, right? So again, I think that team is a little bit better than their record. So if they played that team, that's a matchup that, hey, is dangerous. I don't think Diana Taurasi cares where she play you at in the playoffs. Diana gonna be Diana if Diana gonna be Diana. Diana Taurasi is gonna be Diana Taurasi if Diana Taurasi decides to be Diana Taurasi. And also Minnesota. The last game of the season when I saw them play Minnesota, I'm like, you know what? Sylvia Fowles, you got Simone Augustus, you got some talent. Even Nafisa Collins. Look, I want everybody to stop saying that there's a discussion for Rookie of the Year. There's not. Nafisa is an all-star. Now, granted, I know I had the Trae Young, Luka Doncic argument. I think that Luka had a better first half. I think Trae Young had a better second half. But both of those teams sucked. I do think winning should have something to do with Rookie of the Year. And Nafisa has been one of the best teams, not best teams, but best players on Minnesota. She's contributed to winning basketball. She was an all-star, and she's been consistent all year. Now, granted, nobody can replace Maya Moore, but they ask her in a lot of ways to replace Maya Moore. That's a tough shoes to fill, but I think she's done a great job of that. But again, they have her, they have Simone Augustus, they have Sylvia Fowles. They will not be an easy out. Now, I do think that against them, they're a team where you can kind of force them to shoot the ball because they aren't a great three-point shooting team. But again, having Sylvia down low, she can realistically go for 20 and 20 any given night. That's a matchup that, again, like pretty much every team in the playoffs, I think is a little bit better than, well, all of the lower seeds as far as when you talk about Seattle, you talk about Minnesota, and you talk about the Mercury, are a little bit better than their record. I think that Seattle, for them to even be in this position, missing Brianna and missing Sue Bird is incredible, honestly. And you can see how they won the championship. And if they had all of those people not on the injury list right now, they probably would be the best team. I mean, you would be talking about Washington and Seattle probably for a rematch again in the finals. But regardless, I like the Sparks' chances. Again, I told y'all this back in, I don't even know, probably July. If this team gets healthy, I think you're looking at a real championship team. And I still think that, man. Like, even if they get to the finals against Washington, I give them a shot. You know, like, I think that you're looking at defense combating offense. And defense wins championships, as everybody says. So, we'll see. But Derek Fisher for Coach of the Year, Nneka Ogwumike for Defensive Player of the Year. And I think you got to commend the job that the Sparks have done throughout this regular season. Yeah, go Sparks. It's been Sparklight. And hopefully next time we talk, I will not be talking about a playoff exit. I'll be talking about the semifinals. So we'll see. Talk to you guys later, and appreciate all the support. It's been Sparklight.
You got me up so high, going down my mind for you. You got me up so high, going down